people didn't hear it, we'll record it on YouTube and make sure anybody else who comes in can see it too, okay?
That's great. Thank you.
We passed 51 a moment ago, buddy. Here, we'll give it one more moment as this waiting room keeps expanding. Exciting. Nice to see everybody. I see new friendly faces. I'm guessing we have some people from outside of California. Welcome. There's no reason this is a California only resource. And I am blessed about today. I'm going to get started. We look like we are ready to go. We got 56 people. My name is Adrian Amandi. I'm the director of the Education Resource Center at the California School for the Blind. We started this Tuesday Tea series hoping to have discussions, hoping that we could utilize and rely on the expertise that happens in our field. We all end up so isolated, even when we have teams of people, even when we're at schools for the blind. And having the benefit of relying on each other and getting each other's input and ideas helps tremendously. And so we've developed a series of talks and discussions called Tuesday Tea. And the intent of them is to establish conversation and discussion. So if you have a comment or an idea today, Michael and Ammar, who will be our primary presenters today, are looking forward to you sharing that. I want to remind everyone, Ammar is blind himself. It will be easier if you unmute and simply ask the question. He's not going to see your physical hand go up on the screen. So rather than putting it into the chat or waiting your turn, go ahead and unmute at an appropriate time. Michael and Ammar will prompt you when those times are. If you put it in the chat, I will try to regulate it. One of the things we do every week in this ambition to continue to grow our outreach program is to collect some stats on our program. So I would appreciate it if you could change your name, if you could rename yourself with your full name, your position. So are you a TVI, an O&M, admin, a paraprofessional, a brailleist, and your district that you work in. And that'll give us a stronger argument to continue to expand our programs and to continue to offer opportunities like this. So go ahead and rename via the participants panel. You can rename yourself with your name, your title, and your district. I'm super excited. We put an opportunity out there through CAMS. And if you're in this session, you can get free CEUs from the California Association of Orientation and Mobility Specialists, a wonderful group here in California. Summer Beasley, their membership director, just posted a link into the chat for that. So please access that link. You do have to be a live participant, so this will not be available for people who watch it later on YouTube. But go ahead and click that link if you're here to get that free CEU unit for continuing education. Thank you very much. If you're a student, go ahead and put student on your name rather than your title. You can just put student. Excited to have students here. Absolutely thrilled, Michael and Ammar, that you joined us from outside of California. Thrilled to have a student leading a workshop along with Michael as an O&M specialist. And looking forward to it. So these guys didn't come to listen to me. Let's give the floor to you guys. At 70 participants, I think we have a new record. Bring a student to the table, and we have expertise. I like this. Wow.
Hey, thank you, Adrian, and good afternoon. My name is Michael, and I'm an orientation and mobility specialist in Mesa, in Arizona, near Phoenix. And today I have with me one of, but not my favorite students. This is, I'd like for my co-host to introduce himself as well.
Yeah, my name is Ammar Tarin. I am a student at Mesa Public Schools. It's okay, Michael is not one of my favorite teachers either, so it's mutual. Yeah, I go to school at Mountain View High School in Mesa, and I'm very excited to be here to help Michael present, even though he probably needs it. But it's okay.
Thank you, Ammar. So thank you all for being here. What we're going to talk about today is public transportation and just all the different variables about how somebody who's blind can use public transportation. I kind of like to think of this as like these 7 steps is like a big picture of public transportation for a blind individual. And I also want to open this up to communication from the audience. We have Adrian and I think Winnie are monitoring the chat room. So please ask questions in the chat box and we'll have a chance to answer those questions throughout the whole presentation. So we're going to break down each of the 7 steps individually and talk about them a little bit more. So real quick, I'm just going to run through them all at once. And here, the first one is the planning for your trip step. The second step is locating your bus stop. The third step is boarding your bus. The fourth step is riding on the bus. The fifth step is the signaling to stop. The sixth step is deboarding the bus. And then the last and final step is locating your final destination. So in order for a blind individual to actually be able to use public transit successfully, this is obviously for high school students. And so there's some prerequisite skills that are needed for, I don't want junior high, kids just, I got it, and running out. So these are some of the prerequisites. This presentation is really for high school and upper middle school age students. But there are some prerequisites that are important to discuss before we have anybody attempt to do public transit. Ammar, would you like to share with us the prerequisite skills for the bus trips?
Yeah, so some of them include the time and distance, the address systems in the area, cardinal directions, street crossings, um, light business travel environment, and GPS technology.
So all of those terms are familiar for O&M students and teachers. And we wanted to put those out there as prerequisite skills that would be important for travelers to use when they're out on a bus. So we're going to jump right into step 1, which is really quite honestly the planning of the trip. And it's step 1 is route planning. And it is really the most important step that you can possibly have when it comes to riding on public transit. If you don't have a good plan, you're going to walk out the door and it's going to be you're going to get lost. It's going to be a bad experience. And there's a few different ways to do the route planning. And I've listed some of them here, and I'm going to talk about each one of these route planning options for somebody. And then we're going to open it up to some more questions about the route planning. So option 1, as far as planning for your trip on a public transportation bus, is to use your smartphone. And we all have smartphones. We all know how that works. Most of our students do anyway. And so the Google Maps app is one of the most efficient uses for route planning. It has an option for transit in it. And so I always teach students to use the Google Maps app as part of their orientation and mobility training. And part of that is to be able to ride the bus as well. And then option 2, Siri and Apple Maps. So for the students that have an iPhone and they're, a fanboy on iPhone, Apple Maps also has transit directions, which are actually decent. And some of you may have experience with Apple Maps transit directions. Number 3 is I'd like to highlight an app called the Transit app. Some of you may be familiar with this app, but it's called Transit, TRANSIT. And it is exclusively for public transportation. And it is really I'd say the premier app for anybody that's going to ride the bus or use public transit. It provides real-time notifications like for bus arrivals and for when it's time to deboard the bus. And it does things that the Apple Maps doesn't do. the fourth thing about route planning that's really important to be able to do is to call your local agency. And here in Mesa, we have an agency called Valley Metro, and we call them to get information from them. They have operators that answer your operators that I don't know if they're 24/7, but they answer anybody's questions at all about using the public transportation system. Um, and then lastly, the go-to favorite, which works really well, is number 5 for route planning, is to use maps.google.com on a computer. It is accessible with JAWS. You can go into maps.google.com with the JAWS computer and copy and paste actual step-by-step turns with information that the student can use, and then copy that information into a Word document or something that's accessible for them. And so now we're gonna kind of talk about like route planning and open it up to see if there's any questions that anybody in the audience or any feedback or input about public transit that anybody in the audience has had that's worked for them, or any questions that they may have about how to schedule and plan for a trip on public transportation.
We Ammar, when you get a chance, when you talk, make sure you lean forward. Michael's leaning forward a little bit, and his audio is perfect when he's talking. If you lean forward, I think that will help us hear you. We did have somebody, Lorna from Sweetwater down in San Diego, asked if you're familiar with the Move It app.
Yes. Are you, Ammar?
I am not, but I will take a look at it after we're done here. It gets me a little curious now. I'm a little curious.
Yes.
Hi, really quick. This is Carly. I'm in Fresno, and I've used the Move It app. I really like it. I've been teaching it to one of the students here. The only thing that it doesn't do is it doesn't give you like the fee. So it doesn't tell you the toll, how much you're going to be paying. So that would be something the student would need to put onto the website. But what I really like about it is it gives you like four different options. Say you're going from your house to Target, it'll give you 4 different routes, and it tells you live time, how long it takes to get there, and then it gives you all the steps, like, oh, you're gonna ride bus 34 for 18 stops. And it also gives you can click like more information. Say you miss your bus at 1:30, you'll see the next time that it stops. And the website is really easy to use. It has the accessibility for low vision and for blind. It also has other accessibilities for even people who have seizures and stuff. So I like it. It's super easy to use. You can save like your favorite routes, and you can even plan a route ahead of time. Like say you want to depart the next day, you can plan it for the next day. So I could give a whole lesson on it. I really like it.
Thank you for sharing that. And if you don't mind, can you post the link for that app in the chat box for everybody to be able to access that app? That app was called Move It. I believe it's MOOVIT.
Correct.
Got it.
Like moo, like a cow. Moo. But
yeah.
So and I have heard of it. Is Move It accessible with voiceover? Is it accessible with
Yes.
the accessibility features on a phone? Okay.
Yes.
Awesome.
The only one thing I'm having a hard time with, because I have never used voiceover myself really a lot, is there's really small arrows to drop down like how many bus stops you're going on. And I haven't quite figured out the exact technique of how to find that drop down. So I'm working with my student to figure out how to access that little drop down.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
In
Okay.
other words, this is a student that other systems she's weren't working for her, and this one she's able to do everything that she needs to do.
Okay. Well, we're gonna
Great.
add
Yeah.
we're gonna add Move It to our repertoire
Yes.
of apps.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Thank you.
thank
You're
you for
That
welcome.
link,
sharing that.
that link is in the chat. Lisa from New York City said the Lazario accessible app, and Marissa from San Diego County says they use 511 to get information on local transit and traffic conditions.
Oh, interesting, interesting. If we could please have that Lazario app as well inserted into the chat box. I've heard of it. I've heard of Lazario. I didn't know that it worked with public transportation options. Also, but the suggestion of calling 511 is a great suggestion. Here in Mesa, I believe it's we have a 311 phone number that we can call. That's like city information, you know, like a hotline. And so that would be another option to get information to help you plan your trip. Those are great suggestions. Okay, so we're going to move on to step 2, locating the bus stop. And Ammar, would you like to read the steps for locating the bus stop?
Yeah, I can. Okay. So step 2, locating the bus stop. The first step is using Google Maps to find the bus stop. So you'd use walking directions to the whatever bus stop you need to go to. Say you're looking for Maine and Gilbert. So you go to the search and you type Maine and Gilbert bus stop, and you'd find it. You would have to make sure you know the directional corner for the bus stop as well. Um, Also check the bus stop ID once either before you get there. So you could I know certain cities have on Google Maps you could type in the stop ID, and it'll give you exact directions to that bus stop. Um, the next step is use the text and or call feature of the local agency to get the bus arrival times. Um, that's basically like Valley Metro we have in Arizona, uh, and in other cities it's different as well. Um, and once you are at the bus stop, uh, you would need to stand in an appropriate manner so the bus driver can see you, and he'll see you and your cane, and he'll be able to stop.
Great, great, thank you. So yeah, I like to use Google Maps in the walking directions for students to find a bus stop. Like Ammar said, sometimes you can insert in Google Maps an actual stop ID as your destination. And then you get walking directions and you click start. And then you're being guided step by step, turn by turn to the actual stop ID. It doesn't work in every city, but I have seen it work in some of the major cities.
One thing I will add is sometimes it is important, like I said, to be aware of the direction and which side of the street you're on, because I do know sometimes Google Maps doesn't specifically tell you which side of the street you are on, and if you need to cross to the other side. So that's why we say it's important to know where you are and how far the bus stop is, or if you need to cross the street to know.
Right, which is a very important thing because technology is limited in what it can do. And Google Maps thinks that you're there, but actually it's across the highway, or not the highway, but it's across a busy street. So, so it's important that students are aware of their numbering system and their cardinal directions. But it is one tool that they can use. About number 3, I want to highlight this real quick about the check the stop ID. This is not something that I've known for very long, but every single bus stop in Mesa, and probably where you live, has its own unique stop ID. And so it's not the route number or the bus number. It has nothing to do with that. What it is an actual like identification of the physical bus stop. And that stop ID is unique at every single bus stop in Mesa. There's thousands of them, right? So it's good to know that exact stop ID number. Every single bus stop in the system has its own unique ID. And so if you're ever asking for questions from the transit line, the transit agency, or using your Google Maps app, the ID is what can really make sure that you get to the actual spot that you're looking for. And then, yeah, just stand in an appropriate manner. Of course, we know we want our students to stand facing the bus with their cane in a vertical position in front of their body, and about 3 feet from a curb. So you're not hanging your feet over the curb or anything. And I think that's it for locating the bus stop. We're going to kind of open it up a little bit now for just sort of questions or comments about how to find a bus stop, because finding the bus stop really is, I think, for blind students, probably the biggest challenge. It's maybe the most difficult step that there is in terms of riding the bus as a whole. So, excuse me. So does anybody have any comments or questions about suggestions about how to find a unique bus stop for the first time?
In the chat, we had a little conversation about Soundscape and Blind Square. I'm not positive if those are directly related to that question of finding the bus stop, but it sounds like people are using Soundscape and Blind Square.
Okay.
This is Stacy Coley from CSB, and Ira or Be My Eyes is commented from Marissa from SD Center for the Blind, and those are definitely super helpful if you can't find a tricky bus stop.
Yes.
Yeah.
We
But
agree.
listening for an overhang or using your cane skills to look at the curb or the grass line are usually pretty helpful.
Exactly. For those of you that may not know about those apps, Ira or Be My Eyes, hopefully those links can, those apps, a link for that can be put in the chat box. But those are an app where you are connected on your phone with a sighted employee or maybe even a volunteer on the other end who is watching your camera in a live format. So you can walk around with your phone and take a video of things, and they can tell you you're standing by the bus stop or you're not standing by the bus stop. So that's a really good, that's a high-tech kind of thing to do. But for those of you with a smartphone and plenty of data on your phone, that would be one good way to find a bus stop that you've never been to when you're on your own. And I believe Ira or one of those has a first minute. They may have promotions where I know you have to normally pay for those apps, but I think.
Sorry. I know Ira you do. I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong. Be My Eyes is free. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Be My Eyes is free. Ira, I think the first, I don't know how many minutes is free.
This is Annalisa in the distance. It's 10 minutes, I think, for Ira, but if you call back and you get another 10 minutes. So you don't have to pay for it. You can keep calling back, just FYI.
Okay, yeah.
And they don't get mad at you?
No, it's a different person each time. That's very rare you get the same person twice.
Okay. All right.
Just a tip.
Those are great.
I have another tip. This is Marissa from the San Diego Center for the Blind. I know that right after the quarantine began, they were doing a promotion where you were able to call and ask them to give you a training. It's a 5 to 10 minute training where they ask how you like information given to you. And then they'll give you a week free trial of unlimited minutes to give you a taste of like the accessibility. But it's 5 minutes, unlimited all day otherwise. And there's also they're paired with a lot of like stores like Target and airports, and those places that have like a contract with Ira give you unlimited usage in those areas.
Oh,
that's pretty
wow.
cool. I like that.
Nice, like free Wi-Fi.
Yeah, if you check their website,
really
they have a list of all the places you can use it for free. So check that out.
Go to Target on every O&M lesson now.
Every time we're going to Target. That's really cool. That's really cool. We need to look into that some more.
This is Regina with the Earl Baum Center in Sonoma County, and I just did an IRA lesson with a client this past week, and they no longer have the free unlimited 5 minutes. They have 5 minutes every 24 hours, is what I was told by an agent this past week.
Oh, somebody got caught.
Yeah, I think they had a grant or something, and the grant ran out, I think. But yeah, they're no longer doing that. But the free training and then the free week, unlimited minutes, looks like that is still in effect.
And thank you for sharing. I mean, even 1 minute is it can be good enough, right? I mean, if you're within 20 feet of your bus stop and you don't know if it's this light pole or the next light pole, you know, maybe 60 seconds is all you would need to use that app for, right? So I think it could still be used as a viable option. Those are great suggestions. Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna move on to step 3, which is boarding the bus. Ammar, would you like to share with us the steps for boarding the bus?
Okay, so the first step is waiting for the bus to come to a complete stop, and going through the front door once it stops. Just so the driver, if you need to, you can talk to the driver. I know, like with COVID and everything, they're having to go through the back door, so I don't know how it works now. But in a usual circumstance, you'd go through the front door. Listen for the outside announcements and or verify with the driver the bus number and heading, where or the street or the bus number. That's why it's important to go through the front. If there's no outside announcement, you could talk to the driver. Pay fare on fare box using dollar bills or coins. That's just if there's a fare, you'd use the box at the front to pay. If they do take payment right now.
Which they don't.
Which they don't with COVID, at least in Mesa. So the next step is sit in the front of the bus on the passenger side. Again, COVID may not allow, but it's fine. For now, whatever you are able to do. But they do recommend to sit in the front passenger side. And do not block the aisleway with your cane. Hold it in front of you.
Yep.
And keep it vertical, basically.
Yep. So thank you. So step 3, boarding the bus. It's not a difficult task, but there are obviously a few steps you want to go through. We're going to go ahead and kind of push into the question and answer portion of step 3, getting on the bus. And we can tell you what, Ammar, let us know what is different about the buses now, Ammar, because of COVID.
Yeah, so right now, most buses, at least in Mesa, are having you board from the back of the bus. You can't really interact with the driver because there's a window or something separating you from the driver. You have to sit at a certain distance away from the front of the bus, so they have you sit at the back door where you enter. You just need to sit at the back. There is luckily no pay fare, so you do not have to pay, at least for those buses. And I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And masks are required.
Oh, I actually forgot that, but yeah. So here in Mesa right now, because of COVID, you're actually boarding and exiting the bus out of the back door. You're not paying the fare. You're not communicating with the driver. You're actually walking on the back door and just sitting down. And I guess he has a clicker or something, and he lets you on the bus. Does anybody else have any experiences with, recently with getting on a bus that they'd like to share, especially with, with COVID being a thing right now?
This is Regina again. The only thing that I would add is they're limiting hours and days, at least in my area.
Yep.
They're not offering the full service that they had beforehand.
Exactly.
So a route that you may have traveled previously, it may not be the same right now.
Or the time
Yeah.
of it. Exactly. Yeah. Yep. That's a good point. Um,
I have one more. This is Andy Tong from CSB. Something else I've noticed on public transit is that they're spacing out like what seats are open or not. And so even if you can't like come in the front door, it's still a good idea to try and get the driver's attention to ask what seats are available, because certain seats are now like closed off for social distancing and stuff.
Oh. Yeah, and that makes it hard for our students because all they usually put is like that caution tape. You know, it's like maybe one line, you know, and our students can't see that, you know, and so that does make it a little bit different. Ammar, can you just elaborate a little bit on where to sit? Why is it important to sit on the passenger? When I say the passenger side in the front of the bus, why is that the best place for you to sit?
Okay. So when you're sitting really by the passenger side, you're usually by the window or at the front. The first thing is there's usually a string above the chair that you're sitting on. So if you do need to stop, which we'll get to that when we're deboarding the bus, if you do need to stop or get off the bus, you pull that string. It's also just easier to get on and off the bus that way. If you're in the front passenger, you just get off right when you're done and you leave.
Yep. And bus drivers are human too. And just because you tell a bus driver something doesn't mean they're going to remember it. So it's good for students to sit near the front on the passenger side so the bus driver doesn't forget about them. And so they can nicely yell at a bus driver, hey, where are we? And the driver can see the student in the mirror inside of the bus. Okay. So we're going to go over to step 2. Oh, I'm sorry. Wow. I'm way off. We're going to go to step 4. Thank you, Ammar. Riding the bus. And so what we're going to talk about here is the actual time that you spend on the bus is important. And I don't want my students to be like playing I'm going to show my age here, but Tetris. I don't want them playing games on their phone, any Pokemon. I don't want my students being distracted by any other thing at all that's going on in the world. All I want them to focus on is where they are on that bus, how long they've been on that bus for, and when they're supposed to get off the bus. So focusing and paying attention to your orientation on the bus is obviously very, very important. So, Ammar, can you tell us a little bit about step 4, riding on public transportation?
Yeah. So like Mr. Michael said, don't get distracted on your phones. Don't don't talk to strangers. It's kind of a really cliche thing to say, but it's kind of true in a way. Sit in the front on the passenger side, which we already covered. Use time concepts to help with orientation. So just be aware of how long you've been on the bus. If you think you've been on long enough, you can check with the driver how many stops until my stop, and you go remind him because you'll probably forget.
Ammar, volume check, buddy. You're leaning back a little bit.
Sorry. I don't know how much you got, but just
we got it all. You're good. It's great now.
Okay. So use the Transit app or Google Maps to also just check where you are, to know when you need to deboard the bus. Use the indoor auditory system to know cross streets and landmarks, and feel for turns on the rail or railroads, or railroad tracks. Assist with orientation. They assist with orientation and stuff like that. To know where you are.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. So again, I want to make sure my students are not distracted. I don't let them listen to music or play on their phone. The transit app and maybe the Move It app, people can share with us as well if it does this in the chat box. The transit app I love because it gives you a warning or a notification. Your stop is 2 stops away, and then the next one, your stop is this is your stop. Pull the cord. So it gives you those 2 warnings on the transit app, which really I think helps get the attention of a passenger about when it's time to get off the bus. And Ammar, what do I mean by your cane is a people magnet? What do I mean by your cane is a people magnet?
It attracts attention. Many people usually when they see the cane, they try to be overly helpful, or you can get distracted easily by people trying to help you, and you may forget where you're at. So it's just important to ensure that you're not talking to a lot of people and you're paying attention to your route.
This is why I picked him. This is why he's here. Okay, but I'd like to open it up to any questions. I mean, does anybody have any other thoughts or comments about how to keep orientation when you're on a bus for somebody who's visually impaired?
Yeah, so my name is Eli. I'm a student, and an experience I've had is in the past I've looked at the planning that I've done before and seen like how long the bus route will be, and I'd set a timer for when the bus is supposed to stop at my stop.
Great, Eli, thank you. What timer, was it a what app, or was it a actual, how did you time it?
Yeah, I timed it just on my phone.
Like on an app?
Yeah, on the.
Perfect. Oh, the basic, thank you.
Yeah.
The clock app, got it. Has a stopwatch on it. That's great, Eli. Thank you for sharing.
I have another example, using landmarks, if at all possible. I know that on a route I frequently took for school, it went for several miles straight down the street, and I knew that when it took its first turn that I needed to pull the cord for my stop.
That's great. And that's a great orientation technique. Here in Mesa, we have bus routes that they're just long lines. And I mean, the bus might go literally 10 miles or 20 miles, like no joke, with very few, with no turns, because the way our city is laid out. So the turning is it's not something I can often teach my students, but yes, turning is another really good orientation technique to use when you're on the bus as well. Thank you for sharing. Okay, step 5, signaling to stop. Ammar, I'd like to mention this is not difficult to do. This is probably the easiest step of them all, but it is important to do as an independent bus rider. So Ammar, can you share with us a little bit about how to signal to stop?
Okay, and we've mentioned this a lot already. It's come up a lot in our previous slides.
Sorry,
but we'll mention it again, just to be safe. So the cord that you would pull is usually always above you if you're sitting down by the window. The buses also have buttons on poles that you can press. They're located just anywhere throughout the bus stop. Before your next stop, you could ask the driver politely, are we approaching the next stop? Or if this is the next stop and you don't see the cord or the button, you can just say, next stop, please. Or you could pull the cord if there is a cord.
Thank you. Which is also another good reason to sit in the same place on a bus. So you know where the cord is, or you know where the button is. And that's another reason why it's good to sit in the front of the bus on the passenger side, because you know there's going to be a cord right above your head by the window. So again, each bus design here in the middle of my screen, each bus is a little bit different. But I don't want my students to the bus is not the place to do a lot of tactile exploration, right? So So you want to be very careful about that. So it's important that they kind of are consistent and they know like where the cord is that they're going to want to pull. I don't want them to feel around to try and find a button because they're all different. But I do think it is important to pull the cord as well as to tell the driver next stop, please, when you're approaching your stop. Does anybody have any comments about that particular step? Again, it is one of the more easier procedures as far as riding the bus.
Deborah from Ventura said that it helps to be aware of and write down the 3 stops before your stop to be ready for and finding your signal.
Thank you. Yes. 3 stops ahead or 2 stops ahead, or 1 stop ahead. Exactly. That's a great suggestion. I like to have my students have that information written down on their phone that they can access when like in a note or in a Word document or really in an email. I find that when they send emails, they send it to themselves and then it's in the email, a note like that for the steps is in their outbox and their inbox of an email. So it makes it a little bit easier to find. But yes, writing down the stops before yours is a very helpful tool.
Kendra from what looks like the St. Louis area said that she'll teach the social skills necessary to communicate with other passengers about orientation on the bus to find something. It also helps, she said, go against being distracted on the bus and being aware of what you're doing.
Okay. All right. Great. Okay. Thank you for sharing. All right. So we're going to jump right in over to step number 6, which is deboarding the bus. And again, things are different with COVID, but I'll have Ammar go ahead and kind of talk about, some of the procedures for getting off the bus.
Yeah, so typically with no COVID, you'd go through the front door to talk to the driver. If necessary, you could ask him or her for directions, where you need to go to find your final destination. With practice, you could go through the back door if you really wanted to or needed to. If you know where you're going and you don't need to talk to the driver. And have a plan before you step off the bus about which direction you're going. You could ask the driver, is like the McDonald's to the ask him for a specific landmark. You wouldn't do left or right because the driver's left or right could be different than yours. So you probably do, is the McDonald's behind the bus or in front of the bus? Usually they'll know. Sometimes they don't know, and that happens sometimes.
Yeah.
But typically they'll know.
Exactly. So, like Ammar says, for the beginners, I like to allow my students to go out the front door of the bus, so they can ask the driver a question right then and there, if they have one. So I allow my students as early bus travelers to use the front door when they're getting off, so they can ask the driver for any directions they may need. But as they progress through the program, of course, and they don't have a question, then later on, of course, I want them to go off the back door like most people. The most important thing there is to have a plan before you actually step off the bus. And so we found some of the words to use for that, to really avoid saying left and right, because you never know if the driver even knows his left and right, or whose left and right they're talking about, or if it's the left and right from some other place. So some of the words I teach to use as to ask the driver is such and such street, in front of the bus or behind the bus. And that can, when you clarify it that way, when you ask a question, is the McDonald's in front of the bus or is the McDonald's behind the bus? Usually you can get valuable information from that. One quick side note as well, in Mesa, most of our bus stops here were designed after a large intersection. So in other words, the bus has gone through the intersection at the light, at the signal, and then it comes to the bus stop. So when I'm teaching a route that involves crossing at that street, most of the time my students know that when they get off the bus, they'll have to turn and walk to the back of the bus, turn right and walk behind the bus. So in Mesa, that's how our bus stops are designed. Your city may be different as far as I used to live in Austin, Texas, and most of those bus stops were in front of an intersection. So I was teaching students to get off the bus and turn left. But here in Mesa, for whatever reason, they've designed them so that the bus stops are after the bus has gone through. But that is a useful skill to have for students when they are getting off the bus. Does anybody have any comments or any questions about step 6?
I don't see anything specific in the chat, but people are having a fun time, you guys. You guys are doing an exceptional job. I'm getting a lot of direct messages telling me, where'd you find these guys? They're fantastic. Doing very well. So thank you.
I guess one comment I could make is something I use in the city a lot is instead of referencing a landmark, referencing a street name. Especially in San Francisco, we have a lot of these little streets. And so I'd ask the driver, you know, is Stevenson the block in front of you or behind you? And that helps orient me to which way I need to walk.
Exactly. That's a great one. And you know, yeah, that's a great one. What I've noticed is that the bus drivers will know the big streets, but they don't know all those little baby streets, you know. So when you're asking the bus driver for that stuff, it's important for our students to know like the closest big street to their destination, right? Because that may be something the bus driver is able to share with them for sure. Okay. And we're going to go on to our last step, which is locating the final destination once you get off the bus. Obviously, riding the bus does you no good whatsoever if you can't. Nobody rides the bus for fun, at least I don't. So we're trying to go somewhere. So Ammar, go ahead and share with us the steps for that are helpful for finding your final destination.
Okay, so the first step for that is using Google Maps and set as walking directions to wherever you need to go. You know, use your time and distance. Use your understanding of the address systems in the area, so you know if the where you need to go is on either on the north or south side of the street, you know, in front of you or behind you. Be aware of your cardinal directions. Also helps, you know, to know where you're going if you know which direction you need to go. And be careful around parking lots and corner stores.
Right. Yep.
Because,
So
yeah.
because why?
Okay, yeah. So because parking lot and corner stores, you could be, you know, not sure which store it is, especially if they're really small. Usually corner stores are pretty small. They're in small areas, so you just need to know which door you're going into if you need to find it.
Yep. And there's no rules in parking lots, you know. There's no rules in a parking lot is what I usually tell my students. And so this kind of goes back a little bit to just the prerequisite skills that I think are important for any bus traveler. So these are the kinds of skills that really this step 7 can also kind of be kind of a, you know, it is the prerequisite skills of somebody who's a bus user. So and as Mar mentioned, Google Maps is great, but it doesn't know what side of the street you're on always. So that's when you really have to use your good O&M skills to actually know if you're on the right side of the street or not. But does anybody have anything they would like to share about, you know, how to get from a bus stop to a location or anything else that's worked well for them? I think Ira or Be My Eyes may be another good opportunity, another good time to use one of those 2 apps as well.
think you're clear in the chat. If I miss something from somebody, please speak up.
Okay. All right. So there's a few questions. We're going to post this presentation in the chat box, I believe, and as well as a handout as well, with some of these steps written down for all of you. Adrian is welcome to put my email in the chat box as well. But also, lastly, there are a few questions, before a person goes out and wants to ride the bus. I want them to have all of this information and answer to all of these questions before they leave the house, right? Where is the bus stop? What bus do I catch? How long am I on that bus for? Do I transfer or not? And then what am I going to do when I get off of the bus? Again, of all the steps presented here today, step one, the planning of your trip, is far and away the most important step of them all. And so these are questions I always go over with students before we even take the first bus trip to a new place. That's really that's really about it. I'd like to open it up to anybody else that, if there's any other comments or questions about bus riding that we've had, or anything else we can clarify about bus riding for you guys.
We have somebody asked for the slides in a Word format. We can see what we can do to make it even easier. It should be accessible the way it's presented with a screen reader.
If we can get if we can get their email, by the way, if we can get your email, we can, if you can send me an email there, I'd be happy to supply you with the information that we shared here in this presentation. Also, I'd like to know, for any of our students out there who are using JAWS right now, is the presentation accessible to them at all on their end of the screen, or is it just us talking?
Anybody out there? Oh, here comes Eli.
On this, we can't see, or I mean, JAWS, I don't think works for
presentations. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Eli.
I think you could use JAWS's OCR feature. Insert space with a followed by O, and it's an that's a whole lesson in and of itself to learn about JAWS OCR.
That's
You
good
could
to
gain
know.
some access. It's a little caveat.
Go, Adrian.
Microsoft Teams does some cool things with presentations and JAWS on. They actually will read you the next slide when you're doing a presentation in Teams.
See, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
We had a question in the chat about COVID virtual O&M thoughts from Ken.
Yeah.
Is there any specific?
Did you guys do virtual?
So, wow, that's there's I guess I kind of need the question to be a little bit more specific.
I think I could so we were doing virtual for the first couple months. And it is difficult because we had to meet on WebEx. We couldn't meet in person. That's obviously hard to, you could plan bus trips, but you can't actually take bus trips. So we would just meet on WebEx and we would just talk about different O&M skills or what we've done previously. That's really,
Yeah, I have also found that when COVID hit and everything went virtual, one of the things I did a lot of was just review, unfortunately, but kind of review skills that I had taught students already, but do it obviously in a virtual format. but that at least does give us the opportunity to have a common discussion, a common dialogue about skills and concepts that are important. But yeah, that's a whole nother presentation. But one thing my students are mostly able to do is they can get on WebEx or Zoom. We said the word WebEx. We use a platform for our virtual teaching called WebEx, not Zoom. And most of my students are good at getting in on that and sharing their screen with me so I can see what's on their screen and having their camera on as well. So I've had students use smartphone apps, smartphones and computer stuff when they're sharing their screen, and I'm watching them insert information into their phone. But again, they have to know how to share you have to teach them how to share their screen as well.
We had a student in Contra Costa County. Ellie, would you like to say something?
I would love to, thank you. During COVID, it's definitely thrown us all in for a loop. But during this time, I'm actually was interrupted in the process of getting a guide dog. I just got in my call to be accepted that great day of March 13th, 2020. And so then everything changed. I had to do my guide dog walk on FaceTime. And everything was thrown in for a loop for my O&M instructor, and right now she is actually out on maternity leave, and now I have Annalisa, who is actually in here. Hi. Mwah. Thank you for saying my hair looks great. But but yeah, it's definitely been thrown in for a loop. We've done a bunch of O&M FaceTimes and talking about street crossings, which is weird with the delay in trying to even getting enough what would you say, courage, inspiration to go outside at this point, since everyone's staying indoors. But a really good thing that we've done is making a PowerPoint or a doc of what your vision is like and kind of explaining what tools that you need during this time, because this is the first time that we get to actually sit down for once and be like, all right, so online school kind of sucks. It benefits for some of us, but let's make a PowerPoint and tell our teachers or the disability services what we need and the tools that we use and some simulations of what our vision looks like. So if any of you teachers or TVIs or O&M instructors out there, if you want to steal that idea, go ahead.
That's a great idea. I've thought about that, using it for students before COVID for students to explain their vision loss to their classmates, like in person, because it gives them the skill of making Ammar here, making a presentation. Let's all give Ammar a quick applause here.
There it is.
And it's the advocacy part of it as well. So when I love to have my students make presentations about anything, including their vision impairment, because it's technology and it's advocacy. So there's two parts of the ECC that are very important there. Ellie, if you could please just elaborate just a little bit about the FaceTime O&M lesson. Exactly how did that work, and who was holding the camera, and who was on the other end of the camera, and what skills were you working on at that time?
Sorry to unmute myself for a second. Yeah, during that time, it was really hard because as of then I was under the age of 18. So I had to have one of my parents, since they're my guardian, follow me, and my mom works as a paramedic, so it's kind of hard to get her schedule to fit me, and my dad stays home. He is actually disabled himself. So it was hard to get him at times to actually follow me with the camera. He's not visually impaired, but he has back issues. So he would follow me around and then hate me for about a week because I hurt his back from that walk. But
And then who was on the other? Who was he FaceTiming with?
We were FaceTiming with my O&M instructor, and then for Guide Dogs to the Blind, it was the admissions council.
Okay, good. Great. Well, first of all, congratulations. That's very exciting. And I'm glad to hear that you weren't taking, it wasn't you walking down doing a selfie O&M lesson or anything.
Oh gosh.
That makes me, but that's a very good suggestion of using FaceTime with students. That's probably the, as far as, that's probably the best option for quality O&M that in the age of COVID. It really is it's really great that you were able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And it kind of, in my opinion, it kind of shows your TVI, not trying to be in a creepy way, but kind of like what your world looks like what your neighborhood looks like, so they can kind of better adapt and mold that lesson into, okay, you have an intersection that's blocked off by an end sign here.
Right.
Let's approach it as if there was no end sign, and we're going to listen for traffic. What does our far and near, parallel and perpendicular sound like? What's the visibility like?
Exactly. And I use Google Maps Street View to research all my students' neighborhoods now. And I'm sure that's a common thing for us now, but yeah, I'm using Street View, Google Maps, for helping them to plan their trips in their neighborhood, since they're not on campus anymore. So that's all we have. If anybody else has any questions or comments for us, we'd love to hear it. Okay.
You guys rocked this. You guys did a great job.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Ellie, I think they're waiting for you to link your YouTube channel in the thing. Some people notice that you've got a fancy microphone and everything.
Can y'all see this?
You have one too? Oh, you have a microphone too. All right, Ammar and Ellie, you guys are gonna connect with that thing.
Man.
Right? Here, let me grab my YouTube channel real quick. Actually, shameless plug. I don't mind.
For those of you, let me go first, Ellie. Next week, everybody, we are going to have the crew from the Braille Institute is going to join us. Sergio Oliva, Matt Beckwith, and Rachel Antone are going to join us to talk about their national programs, to talk about promoting Braille literacy through the Braille Challenge and the special collection. For those of you who are not aware, the Braille Challenge is alive and going on right now. We just kicked off our Northern California Regional last Friday, but the crew at Braille Institute is going to talk about how Braille Institute itself supports the Braille Challenge and how you can get involved and utilize it to support Braille literacy with your students. And I'm sure they'll be there for other questions. We're posting out the rest of our schedule for Tuesday Teas throughout the rest of this school year as they populate. There's still some space. So if you have a fantastic presentation idea, Elisa and Ellie, and want to follow in the footsteps of this fantastic duo, that would be awesome.
No pressure, but Ellie, I'm up for it if you are.
Michael and Ammar, I'd really like to say thank you. You blew us out of the water. That was a fantastic, well-prepared, well-given presentation. And Ammar, you got quite a future ahead of you, and we're proud to have been part of that journey. Cool, man. You're getting a lot of cheers from